From UDO in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 40 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Darren Dreger here in Brooklyn, Ontario, Canada. Ray Ferraro, as always, in his beautiful, where are you, office, basement?
Basement today.
Nice.
Basement today. Yep.
So I'm looking at, and look, you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Otherwise, none of this is going to make sense. So please do that. Because
Trust me, it's more than subscribe to the YouTube channel so it makes sense. It's actually all of it. Try and make sense of it.
Fair enough. So as I'm looking at your background, I see your what is it, NHL All-Star
Yes.
jersey, yeah, and then your commemorative gift from the National Hockey League Players Association with all your career stats, the montage of uniforms that you wore in the NHL. Prominently displayed is the New York Islanders sweater. I love it. I love it. Okay, now a little show and tell here. So for all of our podcast listeners, turn into viewers and subscribe to our YouTube channel because see, now I can't see, but can you see it?
Oh, yeah, that's the Thrashers.
Okay,
that is a true collectible.
It is. But I don't see Ray Ferraro on here. This would be what, 99, 2000, or 2000, 2001. Jeff Odgers.
There, I see a number 13. That's Patty Steffen. I see a David Harlock, number 6. He had excellent penmanship.
Steve Staios.
Steve Staios. Gordon Murphy, number 5's up there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Right. Isn't that it? Like right off the peak of the. See where your thumb is. Move towards the up. It's right towards the peak of the Thrasher thing. Right there. What's that?
Right here. What number were you?
That, in Atlanta 21.
I don't see it.
Yeah, well, it couldn't.
Maybe
it's not a true. It's not a true collectible if I'm not on it. I was part of that. I was part of that 14-win team, Dregs.
Who was 14 for the Thrashers that year?
Oh, Tommy Kallio.
There he is.
What a guy. We called him Big Tom, from Tommy Boy. Yeah. And as soon as he found out Big Tom was from Tommy Boy, he loved it. This guy was like every Finnish awesome guy that you played with.
Yeah.
He always had his dip in. He always had his dip in. He'd always, let's go for a couple. Let's go for a couple. Oh, awesome guy. Awesome. One of my favorites.
I'm pretty sure that I bought this at an auction. Now, Jeff Odgers, good friend of the Ray and Dregs podcast, used to have the Jeff Odgers Invitational Golf Tournament at Carlton Trail near his home in Spy Hill. And I feel like this
first tee or
I feel like I probably grossly overpaid for this signed jersey. So anyway.
But if you overpaid, it was for charity.
It was for charity, yeah. Fred and Cheryl
paid. If you paid any money for it, you overpaid.
Yeah. So anyway,
because let's be honest, that was, and I'm not even kidding here. I always joke about our time in Atlanta, but that collection of players right there added up to one of the worst teams in hockey history. We won 14 games.
Oh my goodness!
I think the worst team was Washington. I think they won 8.
Yeah,
8 games.
8 games.
Like you got to win a couple by accident.
Yeah,
that's a long.
So
game.
That's one of the treasures that I found. That's the beauty of moving, right? You start going through boxes and things like that,
right?
And I, all the Team Canada stuff I have, and I have a signed Patrick Roy Colorado Avalanche sweater. And I feel like it was his last season, but I'm not a collector of that kind of stuff. I'm not easily impressed by autograph memorabilia. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yep.
This is the good stuff, though, right? Because you got Odgie on there.
Yeah, but you got a connection to Odge, and like that. I like that. I'm not a collector at all either. I mean, I've got some jerseys hanging up, and Cammy's Olympic jerseys are hanging up, and but. I don't know. Most of them are in the back somewhere.
All right, we've got John Buccigross from ESPN joining us on the Ray and Dregs podcast. Chances are he's going to have a story or two about you. Is that an easy assumption?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about Booch. He's a pretty eclectic guy.
Yeah.
Loves music, loves movies, loves hockey, golf, sports. Like, he had at one time, he'll probably know the exact number, but he had in his office hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of CDs, all in a really neat display, all in alphabetical order. I can't even imagine how long it took. And the only thing I'm thinking right now is, man, I never thought that through. I should have gone down there and changed around.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that was such a bogey by me. I can't believe I never came up with that.
Now, do you go, so if he's got a Led Zeppelin CD, and I'm sure he does. I mean, he's a music guy, and Led Zeppelin is
for sure.
legend. So do you put Zeppelin at the end of the line, or is it middle of the pack because you're going with Led?
This is a question for you to ask him. I think this is important stuff. And he went, I'm going to get him to talk about what he did this year during quarantine. In what he did to rate a bunch of movies that he's seen.
Nice.
He rated. I'll let him tell you. Like, he's an eclectic guy. He's really loves the games. Got some great ideas about it too.
Great. All right, John Buccigross from ESPN will join us here on the Ray and Dregs podcast coming up. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. I'm going to forewarn you, Ray. There's a couple of Toronto Maple Leaf related questions.
And now, is the panic or is the urgency getting more as their team is further away from playing?
Yeah. One of the questions is asking you to forecast where this team is headed, where people are tired and are getting impatient, so they want to know. And John Tavares has taken some heat, right? So I don't understand that. I mean, so the New York Islanders are that much better without John Tavares? Come on, I don't buy that. But then
but here's where I think that makes sense. Is that, can you use the $11 million of salary?
Yeah.
Don't forget, they had Matthews. Yeah. They had Kadri. Did you need $11 million in John Tavares? Or could you have signed a third line center for $3 million and use the other $8 million? I think that's really the whole crux of around Tavares.
All right. Well, we'll get more into that as part of Ask Ray and Dregs anything coming up later in the podcast. And again, a reminder, check out our Ray and Dregs YouTube channel where you can watch full episodes, all of the interviews from past podcasts. Check it out, subscribe on YouTube, and you'll get an ample dose of today's show and tell in episode 40 as well. Our headlines are brought to you by our pals at Boston Pizza and their popular pizza flights available for a limited time. So check that out. 3 pizzas, 3 dips. You choose your pizza lineup. And of course, as always, they go great in the sunshine on the patio with a nice cold beverage or a playoff size fish bowl cocktail. So we hope to see you on the BP patio for puck drop. And I don't know how it is out there. I do. We were talking about this with Rob and Aaron before you signed on. The weather in BC is going to be terrific this week, is it not?
We've had a very sketchy summer weather-wise. Not that it mattered because you couldn't do anything anyway, but we're into our best part of the summer right now. I played golf the last 2 days, and it was on Friday. It was like 24. It was like awesome. So the BP patio could be the place to be.
Yeah, you bet. Looking forward to it. Might head out there a little bit later today. Why don't we, as we coast through headlines, of course, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive here on the Vancouver Canucks. But first, I want a quick thought from you on the conference finalists. You've got Vegas playing the Dallas Stars. Dallas, for me, a bit of a surprise. That just maybe speaks to where Colorado isn't quite yet in the work that Joe Sakic and the Avalanche have to do. So thought on the West, and then we'll shift over to Tampa Bay and the Islanders and the Eastern Conference final. So, Vegas versus Dallas. I mean, is it heavily leaning the Golden Knights' way in this one?
For me, it is. The only way it's not is and I don't quite understand why, but why doesn't Dallas get more from Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin?
Yeah.
I don't get it. In the game 7 against Colorado, the commentator mentioned Sagan's name about halfway through the second period, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." Like he just. I'm thinking Dallas has to have impact from those guys, and they just haven't got a lot of it. Miro Heiskanen is amazing. What an unbelievable player, and we're getting to see him and Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, and Vegas has got Shea Theodore. Like, he's not an old guy either, and man, there's an Ivan Provorov just out with Philadelphia. Like, these young guys, man, Dregs are so good. I think this is heavily favored for Vegas.
Yeah.
I think Dallas really reaped the benefits of the injury problems that Colorado had. Like, you can't take out no Landeskog, no Eric Johnson, no Matt Calvin. There was about 6 of them. Oh yeah, and both goalies.
Yeah.
Like, that clearly was a factor, and would be for any team, but they're down the charts, and you got Michael Hutchinson in goal for game 6 and 7. I mean, that's what you got, your third goalie.
Yeah.
And I don't see this as a particularly close series.
No. I have many favorite NHL players, mostly because they're good guys and I get to know them. So that to me matters every bit as much as the skill set of that player. I love the brutality, honesty, and everything about the character of Robin Lehner. And on top of that, there's a portliness to him, if that's the right word.
Okay, so I can't. His honesty, coming from where he's come from, with all the mental health challenges he's had, he's been incredibly open with it. I'm not sure if you saw in the handshake line, he stopped and had a good chat with Tyler Mott. And
Awesome.
Tyler Mott talked this year about battling depression, and Tyler had a fantastic series too. Yeah. And then I love that in the press conference. First of all, he's what size shirt is he wearing?
Oh,
like that Vegas sweatshirt. Like, Robin Lehner he's 250 plus.
And some believe he's pushing 3 bills. I don't know that's true.
Sure, I could live in the shirt. He's such a big dude. And then he said, "Yeah, Twitter." He tweets out, "Twitter was great motivation today." I felt like he was talking to me.
Yeah.
Amongst 8,000 other people or commentators who I said I think they should play Fleury in game 7. And look, me and you could have played in goal down there and not really impacted the game much, but the save he made at 0-0 on Brock Besser is an all-timer.
Yeah.
And I almost, it probably, it doesn't get as much headline, but remember when Vegas was pushing Washington, and it was in game 6, it was in Vegas, and Braden Holtby made a save with about 2.5 minutes left. It was right in front of me where I was standing.
Yeah.
And the net was wide open. And I can't remember who the Vegas player was, and Holtby lead the cross with a stick to stop it. If Besser scores in game 7, no chance the Golden Knights are like, we've just had 1 million shots and we're losing 1-0.
Yeah.
Like, that was an all-timer by Lehner. He's easy guy to cheer for, man.
He really, truly is. Yeah. So, all right. So that's the West. And obviously in episode 41, we'll start to dissect that series more. Likewise in the East. You've often said this, and I'm with you. We don't cheer for teams. You can cheer for individuals based on the conversation we've just had about Robin Lehner as an example. However, you proudly say that the Islanders sweater is the one that you like the best, but most proud of wearing? Is that fair?
Most connected to the Islanders, for sure. You know what's funny about that, Dregs? I get ripped all the time on social media about how come you never say anything good about the Islanders. For the last 10 years, they've sucked. Yeah. There has not been anything good to say. I'm trying. Hey, guys, I'm trying. There hasn't been much. It is easy to scratch that dust off when I see how they have progressed over the last couple of years. I look at some of their players. I've known Matt Barzal since he was a little kid, skating in the younger group in front of the groups we were coaching, and he's a good kid, and I want them to win. I want that. I want them to be good.
Yeah.
And so I was like yesterday. I mean, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other if Philadelphia or the Islanders get through to the next round. But man, I was happy for them. I was happy for Barry Trotz, who I think is a good man, like just a really good person. He doesn't start his availability till he talks about how inspirational Oscar Lindblom is.
Yeah.
And like Oscar Lindblom coming back from, his cancer treatments, and it's just awesome to see him. But Trotz mentions him. I like they're almost faceless, those players.
They are.
It's just like if you're playing for Lou and you're playing for Barry Trotz, it's an old adage, but the front of the jersey is way more important than the back. And if you can't see that, you don't play.
Yeah.
Matt Barzal sometimes in the regular season plays 13 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's because Papa Barry's not very happy with the way he plays. And then the next night he plays 18 minutes. Like they have true accountability. That team is better, the sum of their parts, than they are individually. And they are going to be a bear in this conference final.
See, I know you loved playing for Al Arbor. And
yes.
There were times I'm sure you had a love-hate relationship with Al, because Al was not a soft coach by any stretch of the imagination. But you and so many others that Al Arbor coached responded and thrived. And I don't know that I'm trying to make a connection and a comparison, Barry Trotz to Al Arbor, but when you've got that level of respect for your coach, because your coach communicates with you, and he's going to pin you every once in a while, but he's also going to give you an opportunity to excel and do something great for your team. I get that out of Barry Trotz. That's what I see. I think he's great to play for.
I see that. I see that he must connect with the players as people, as well as whatever the hell they're doing on the ice. And that's really that's an imperative in 2020. Like the guys want to know that you give a damn about them.
Right.
And you talk to the people in Washington that played for him, and they'll tell you that. Again, in the handshake line, he stopped and had a longer conversation with Braden Holtby in particular. Holtby likely playing his last game there. They talked about whatever they talked about. I think that's a really cool connection that Trotz makes with his players, because what he's asking them to do is not easy, right? Like to play that way. Yeah. And so, for example, they get to Game 7, and who are their first two goals by? Scott Mayfield and Andy Green. Like Andy Green scores 3 times a year. What's he doing down there? I don't know. He scored. Well, Lou brought Andy Green in because he knew him so well. He brought him in at the deadline for depth in that defense. Oh, Game 7, Andy Green comes up with a big play. Like there, and the transformation to them being a little bit better and faster to what Tampa's tried to do. Tampa trying to get bigger and stronger with Maroon and Coleman and Goudreau. Like they were building to play a team kind of like the Islanders, whoever it was going to be. And I think this will be a great clash.
I do too. And it's a tough one. Like I want to give the Lightning the edge, obviously, because of the firepower that they have up front. But just the way the New York Islanders play as a group, all the attention to detail and whatnot, I think that they're going to frustrate the snot out of the Tampa Bay Lightning in this series. I do.
They frustrate me watching on the couch.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh my God, that would be brutal to play against those guys. The biggest misnomer is that they're a trap team, because they're not. And so I think people view them as like they sit back, and they don't sit back. They skate and they bump and there's been a couple of players in particular, Dregs, that have jumped way forward for me. Like, I don't know what's happened to Brock Nelson over the last year and a bit, but man, what a player he's become.
Yeah.
And, Josh Bailey, like these guys have been there forever. and they were through some of the crap years.
Yeah.
And it's got to be really satisfying. But here's the crazy part. I learned this in 93. These 4 teams, they're halfway home.
Yeah.
All this work, they're halfway. You realize later to get here, you're kind of nowhere.
Yeah.
You're just halfway. You got a long road in front of you still.
Well, it for the Islanders, it probably feels like more than half because they came out of the qualifying round, right? So, there's another 5 games tagged on top.
I know we got to get going here, but
yeah.
And so that leads me into my pet peeve of the playoffs. So the Islanders have won 11 games to get to the conference finals.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the playoffs, the first round. It's screwing up the records. It pisses me off. Nate McKinnon's chasing Wayne Gretzky's point record. No, he isn't. He had the previous games. They don't count. However, the league says they count, and they really obviously don't care what I think. But I cannot get into that. I can't buy it.
All right, we've got John Buccigross from ESPN coming up on the podcast, Ray. Let's dive into the Vancouver Canucks here for the next handful of minutes before we move along. Great run by Vancouver. I mean, is it as obvious as saying they lost to a deeper / better team in the Vegas Golden Knights? Just that simple.
We can divvy this thing up 50 different ways, Dregs, and the best team won. The team that should have won. The team that dominated most of the series won. At one point in Game 7, they flashed up a graphic that showed that Vegas has 100 more shots than Vancouver in the series. 100. Like, that's crazy how much they dominated when large portions of the game. They get to Game 6 or Game 7, and the Canucks have 6 shots after 2 periods. Like, they smothered them with their overall speed and size and relentlessness on the puck. Jacob Markstrom went out for the start of Game 5. I'm like, it's going to be really hard for Thatcher Demko to play at that level. He outkicked Markstrom. He was just brilliant. Really, people are super excited in Vancouver, and they should be, about Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson and the way that the Canucks team played. Bo Horvat had 10 goals in the playoffs, but I think they're going to have to pump the brakes here a little bit because they've got $18 million in money they can't do anything with for next year. Beagle, Roussel, Sutter, Louis Eriksson. So that takes your cap down to about $61 million for other guys. They're going to have to dance a little bit for the next year or so. And who knows how it'll go, but man, it was exciting out here.
Yeah.
Fun.
So Thatcher Demko, I mean, how can you not be not just impressed, but amazed by how well this kid played for the Vancouver Canucks in the 3 starts? I mean, absolutely stellar. But as a savvy, sage hockey man, have you seen enough in Thatcher Demko to say, all right, this kid's ready to take the crease as a starter in the National Hockey League? Or are you just doing whatever you have to do, and it could be $6 million plus per year to keep Jacob Markstrom? Is that your priority? Because Markstrom, you can make a pretty sound argument, I think, Ray, that he was the MVP of the season for the Vancouver Canucks. So which way are you leaning?
Okay, so I think in a year and a half, Thatcher Demko is a true, legit number 1 guy.
Yeah.
And I just say that because just for the experience of, and we've seen it, Dregs, with dozens of goalies, when the workload gets heavier, it's different being the number 1 guy as opposed to playing every second or third game. So I'm not ready to say right now, he can play 55 games next year. Here's where I think you really have to balance this out. If you sign Markstrom to a $6 million deal, and you could somehow get him to not have expansion draft protection, to get him away from the full no move, that means you've got to protect either Demko or Markstrom for Seattle's expansion. I don't think there's any question. As I look at the Canucks roster, if I'm Seattle, and the Canucks have those two goalies, whichever one they don't protect, I'm taking.
For sure.
That's one of my guys. So if you can get him to not have the no move, then I think you can now play into the trade deadline of next year before you have to make your decision. You'd have both of these goalies. If you can't, and or Pat Morris and who's Jacob Markstrom's agents can get offers that include no move, and he wants to go to, for example, Colorado or Edmonton. I mean, man, you could see him in either of those places. It gets back to our John Tavares thing. Can't you use that $6 million elsewhere? So say you have Demko, he's under $1 million, right? Because he's on a first contract. You, with the dozen goalies or so that are going to change places this year, could you not get a veteran guy for $3 million? Sign him for 2 years. Now you've got another $3 million to play with this year until Louis Eriksson's $6 million's off the book after this coming year. And then Brandon Sutter's $5 million's off the book. Man, that's $11 million. You've skirted the cap issue that you're going to have to pay Pettersson and Hughes in a year.
Yeah.
It's never as easy. You know this, Dregs. You talk to these guys all the time, man. It's never as easy as, oh yeah, do this. You might like that. You might love Jacob Markstrom, and you're like, man, if I sign him, I can't sign Chris Tanev.
No.
I can't sign Tyler Toffoli.
No.
Like, what am I going to do? You only got so much money.
Yeah.
And so the missteps they made on July 1st in the last couple of years are biting them in the ass right now. And that leads into the Markstrom decision. I love Markstrom. I think he's had an amazing 2 years, not just 1 year. I'm a little nervous about signing him for 6 years or for 5 years, and then I've got to expose either Markstrom or Demko. That means I get nothing.
Yeah.
Am I going to do that now and then have to scramble next summer when there's going to be less goalies available, or am I going to deal with that this summer? That's what Jim Benning's going to have to figure out.
All right, Raymond, time to name our players for the Doer playoff performance of the week. I gave mine a fair bit of thought. Yours seems a little homerish, but also appreciably valid given how terrific this young man was. And when you try and dissect what a Doer playoff performer should be all about, it pretty much embodies the young man that you're going to talk about here, because man, what a week.
The homerish part I'm going to defend just because he plays in the city that I live in. Why would that matter? Thatcher Demko stopped. And this is a factual number. Thatcher Demko stopped 999 of 1,000 shots in the 3 games that he played. Yeah. He had 300 shots a game. It was really quite impressive. What an unbelievable performance he put in. The 48 save shutout in the middle of of games 5 and 7. Vancouver gets to game 7. No other way than Thatcher Demko plays the way that he does. Yeah. And in that game 7, when the shots were 27-6 after 2 periods, it's still 0-0.
Yeah.
Like, just a brilliant performance. He's my Doer player of the week.
You know what? And I'm making fun more at your expense than I am of Thatcher Demko, because
I know you are. You always like to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Richly deserving of the Doer playoff performer of the week. I am going to the Vegas Golden Knights. Not sure why we focused on this series entirely. Again, Demko, most definitely high quality and deserving. I'm going to Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights, Ray. And, I'm thinking back to the trade between Anaheim and Vegas. And, Anaheim still has a high quality blue line, and they still have, pieces that are developing as prospects within that organization. They seem to be a factory for these high quality young defense. And I'm looking at Vatanen, who's not there. I'm looking at Josh Manson, who maybe is taking a bit of a step back. But at the time of that deal, Josh Manson, as an example, seemed to be an untouchable, right, for the Anaheim Ducks.
Yep.
And I'm watching Shea Theodore every night for the Vegas Golden Knights. And Kellen McCrimmon and George McPhee have got to be going, oh, boy. It's almost like, you're blindfolded and you're holding up a bank and you're like, put the money in the bag, because that's what they did when they pulled Shea Theodore from the Anaheim Ducks. He has been terrific, and we don't know how good he can be. We're watching him now in the conference final. He's lights out good, but he's going to get better, and it's hard to imagine what better is going to look like, based on how Shea Theodore plays now.
And just under 2 years ago, playing for Hockey Canada over in Europe, was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and had that dealt with, has come back healthy, just an amazing player. Man, he can skate, and he's just another one of those young 25 and under defensemen that are just game breakers for their teams.
Shea Theodore is my Dewar playoff performer of the week. When you want performance denim, go nowhere else. You got to go with Dewar, the world's most comfortable pants. You can use code RAY to get 15% off everything site-wide at Dewar.ca. Our interview with John Buccigross is coming up next. It's brought to you by our friends at coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. We know sports are back around the world. The NFL starting this coming week. Looking forward to that. And along with all of the free sports and casino games, coolbet.co also now has a daily betting odds and line report, and it covers all the day's action. Be sure to check that out. You have to be 19 years old to play. Coolbet reminds you, stay cool, always bet responsibly. All right, longtime ESPN anchor, hockey broadcaster, relentless supporter of college hockey, among other things, and when safe to do so, the road brother for many a golf trip, Ray Ferraro. John Buccigross joins us, Ray, on the Ray and Dregs podcast. John, how are you today?
Hello, boys. Hello, Canada. Hello, North America. Hello, hockey world. Good to be with you, boys. I'm the eclectic John Buccigross.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Where are you at? Where are you at these days?
I am in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the Pilgrims landed after their 66-day journey across the North Atlantic in 1620, where my parents currently reside, spending a weekend with them.
And how are they doing? We got to know your parents back in the day, and your dad had his card shop and all that stuff after he retired. How are they doing, Booch?
Doing well. Born in 1932, both of them in South Boston, Massachusetts during the Depression. Grew up there in Southie and raised us in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and then retired and returned here to Plymouth back in 1988 now. So, geez, they've been here for 32 years, which is the longest they've ever lived anywhere. So kind of weird how life works like that. But they're healthy. Minds are good. Move a little slower. But that's why I come up. I'm cooking them chicken parm tonight. Shop for them, cook for them. Try to make life a little bit easier for them. They made it easy for me, so I'm trying to make it easy for them.
Now, do you let them use real utensils, or do you like the plastic forks that we used to eat when we had to get tape?
No, we have silverware. We do have silver. It is legal in Massachusetts, and so we use it. Yeah, no more plastic forks in this man's world.
That's a good thing. Hey, Booch, what are you digging about the playoffs, the bubble, the way the NHL's putting this on?
Well, it's been good. When I saw the first couple of games and how the rinks looked and how the game looked and sounded, I right away, I think after one game or so, I tweeted out, this looks good. This is going to be all right. On a scale to 0 to 100, I think it's still really like a 60. When playoff hockey is 100, I don't think it's really close to what it's like with fans and going back and forth to cities and getting that ebb and flow that you feel and going to back to a different crowd and stuff. That's just irreplaceable. The great moments that these players are having in empty rinks kind of stinks. Kind of like some of these golfers are having in professional golf, making these 60-footers to win tournaments with nobody around the green. That roar, because that's indelible. I remember, Ray, you told me about when you guys beat the Penguins in '93. what you remember was how quiet it was and how you could hear Glenn Healy screaming from the other end of the ice. And like, that's what you remember. And that's just, the sounds and smells, that's what's indelible. It's like, I feel kind of bad, but there's no doubt that these memories will still be strong. They'll remember this forever. And whoever wins the cup, it's going to feel, I think, just as good as anybody else who won the cup. So overall, it's a pretty amazing kick save and a beauty by all these professional sports leagues, what they're doing.
So what's the vibe like, John, in the United States? I mean, we in television always measure things on, the buzz around the world of hockey, be it ratings in television, whatnot. I mean, hockey in August is far from perfect. The National Hockey League, as we've talked about here, made the best of a terrible situation. I don't have a real sense in Canada, especially now the Vancouver Canucks being dispatched, that there's this historic attachment to what's happening, with the Stanley Cup and the Stanley Cup final looming. What's your sense of what the American hockey fan is feeling about the playoffs?
Well, it's always been a very regional sport. We know that. When your team is in it, everyone's in it. I mean, Boston Twitter is great. Philadelphia Twitter is awesome. New York Islander Twitter is actually pretty good, so I'm glad they're still in it. Tampa Bay Twitter is not real loud. Dallas is okay. Vegas is kind of quiet, but it's growing. They'll always consider that their team more than the Raiders, I think, forever. So that's turned into a very quick, really good sports/hockey market. So overall, when the teams that are in it, the cities are in it, and that's all you can. And so that hasn't really changed, even though, like you said, normally it's May, but the weather's not that much different than when we're normally at the Final Four. The weather's kind of similar. Like today, it's a beautiful day. It's like it would be in late May when we got down there, or middle of May when we got down to the Final Four team. So when you look at it that way, it's like it's not that much off. Maybe it was in the beginning, but right now it's kind of it's life. The sun sets about the same time. The temperature's about the same.
Yeah.
The kids were normally they're ending school. Now they're kind of starting school. Those dynamics are sometimes kind of alike because you're kind of excited on both ends. You're always excited for vacation, but then you're always kind of excited to get back to school too. It's kind of and so I don't think it's that far off. So that's why I think it's not too discombobulating in the mind.
What do you think of the four teams left? Like starting in the East, the Islanders they're like a buzzsaw machine. I'd hate to play those guys. And then Tampa was built this year so they could play a team like the Islanders. Like, what are you seeing? I see this as like just a meat grinder of a series.
I really enjoy this matchup. I love the Point Barzal young centerman matchup. I'm kind of really looking forward to that. Tampa's interesting, man. To me, Tampa's the story. This is, remember back in 2015, they were so close to win an original 6 Stanley Cup. They beat Detroit, Montreal, the Rangers, and they had Chicago in the final. That would have been so cool for an expansion team to pour through an original 6 lineup to win the cup. And a lot of those guys are still there. They have a pretty big core. Those guys were young. Palat was young. Killorn was young. Obviously, Stamkos once he returns. So that's a pretty decent. You don't see that a lot. 5 years later, a lot of those guys are still there. Obviously, they added someone like Kucherov, who was just, he's a superstar. He had 19 points more than the next guy on the team, Stamkos. He had 21 points more than Point, and we know how good Point is. He's gotten better every year. His points went up every year until this past year, because we were still having a good year, but every year his points went up in the league. He just kept ascending. And I love when they got someone like Blake Coleman. When they identified to get someone like him, he turns 29 in November. He's one of those older guys. You think he's younger, but he played college. And so he's 29 in November. They trade for him, and you could see right away he's what they needed. He had no goals in a regular season. But now he's got 7 points in 13 games, and he'll be a good matchup for the Islanders because they play that weird system. I talked to a coach actually. They said they kind of changed up their system here from the regular season. They went more to like what Boston plays, like that quadrant system where the Ds don't go above the circles, and the center has so much responsibility. That's another reason why I'm looking at Barzal. Is like I think he should look at Bergeron as his career comp. Don't get all tied up with scoring titles. in all those stats because he is such a great skater and smart centerman with amazing hands. He could become just this elite two-way guy to play on those Olympic teams, because all those center spots are all tied up with these cyborgs. Why don't you be that third or fourth line center on Olympic teams, win gold medals, play two ways, win Selkies, score, right around point a game a guy. Bergeron's never put up big numbers, but he's still a Hall of Famer. He's going to get his number retired. He's rich, and he got a Stanley Cup and gold medals. So I really think Barzal should look at him right now and make that pivot. And don't worry about numbers. Just be a highly respected. And he's a hard work. He doesn't miss games. He plays, and he plays hurt. And I'm really impressed with him.
How about yesterday? He's sitting there in warm up, standing in the bottom of the circle, and someone clangs one off the bar and knocks his helmet off. And then in the game, he gets cut under the eye, and he's got the cotton sticking out of his nose. There were times I miss playing. When I see that, I'm like, damn, that is a day at work that sucks. You're all marked up, man. But when you said about the system, Booch, the first thing I thought of is we used to play like it, in small areas. When you say there's so much defensive responsibility, it gave me cramps for the center. I'm like, that's a lot of work.
Especially if you're playing center, like you were. He has to skate. The other guys are playing like a zone defense. That centerman, you watch him. He goes there was a great piece of video. I'll tweet it out after we're done about he's on the left circle. And this is in the Washington series, and there's a top of the circle, the other circle, a guy's ready to tee one up. He notices it. He skates all the way over, gets his stick out, and the puck goes over the glass. Like that kind of stuff. And the other defensemen, they stay in front of the goalies. The wingers are high. They don't take risk in the neutral zone, as we know. The third forward is always high, unless it's Everly or Barzal. They're allowed to go. Anytime they can go, they go. But the other guys, they're high. So it's tough they're tough to play. So Tampa getting the Goudreaus and the Colemans, that's how those guys, again, look who Coleman, he played well against the Bruins because those are the kind of guys you got to get your nose in there. And Point plays that way, and Palat plays that way. And the other guys who've been there in 2015 who want to win so badly, they'll play that way. So I think Tampa's built for this when maybe they wouldn't have been last year. Obviously got swept by Columbus. So this would have been a bad matchup for Tampa, but slightly changing the roster, I think it won't be easy. I think they'll get it done, but it won't be easy.
There are some amazing guys that are coaching in college hockey that probably will be NHL coaches relatively soon. And Booch, you can maybe name a couple of them. But my question is, there's so much push, it seems, or there is more push for, hey, give a new guy a chance. Give when there's an opening, talk to college guys, talk to younger coaches. Yet then you see in the Final Four here, and you got Barry Trotz, who's coached since, forever. And so, how do you balance, if you're a team, to hire, if you've got somebody like Barry Trotz available, who I think is just an amazing coach, I'd love to play for him, versus maybe one of the guys that you might think of off the top of your head that's deserving of a chance?
No, you're right. But John Cooper was that guy that got a chance at every level. He was always unproven. And now he's established. You're right. Yeah. Trotz is a Hall of Famer. Rick Bowness has been around forever. Certainly, he has not. There's nothing he hasn't seen. And Peter DeBoer has really proven himself as a very good tactician, very competent professional hockey coach. So you're right. That's when you see that, and that's when people do see that. Washington sees that. So then who's their next coach going to be? They probably won't take a chance on someone like Nate Lehman of Providence. So I think can step right in and be an absolute professional NHL coach. He has respect. He's got empathy. He demands from people. He knows how to run things. He's got presence. He's got all of that. But like you said, when you're looking to do this and get where we are now, and you see this, that always affects guys. Hockey people are so emotional. They make whatever they see in front of them, they say, okay, we got to do that. So we got to hire Mike Babcock, or we got to hire somebody else for Washington. That's the only way we're going to do it. So that's always and it depends where each kind of team is and where they are in their ascent. Obviously, Ottawa could take a chance more than somebody else could take a chance. So, but yeah, I do think there's a couple out there. I say there's more players than teams at the college level, and there's more good coaches than there are teams as well at the college level. It's only 60 teams, so it's only 60 head coaches in a planet of 7 billion. You know, I mean, it's like they're very few, and we're just producing better hockey players than we were 20 years ago. As a result, we're producing better coaches. We know how to teach skill. All that stuff. So,
John, why don't you give us a bit of background here? Again, on a bit of a college hockey theme here. Share with us the great charitable initiative that has developed into what it is now, based on your college hockey branding and whatnot, with the caps and the T-shirts and everything you've got going on there. And then, of course, the great Bucci Overtime Challenge, which I think all of us enjoy, especially on social media. I mean, are you just sitting in studio at ESPN one day and going, okay, hold on a sec. Like I feel like I'm drawn to college hockey. I love it. I want to do something that's going to continue to raise awareness, maybe a few bucks, and then likewise with the Bucci Overtime Challenge.
Well, as Ray knows, I don't really plan anything. Stuff just kind of happens. And, the Bucci Overtime Challenge was just something we played on the NHL Tonight set. We threw $1 on the set. We picked a guy on each team while we waited to do the post-game show because we couldn't do our show until the last playoff game ended. And then we'd pick a couple guys, me, him, and Melrose. And if our guy scored, we'd take the other guy's $2, start the show. If no one scored, we'd put our $1 back in our pocket and start the show. And then after we lost the NHL in 2004, then I got on Twitter in 09 or 10. And then I started getting into college about 3 years after the NHL was gone. I said, hey, can I do some play-by-play of these NCAA regional games? And they said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then that's grown into obviously doing the last 7 Final Fours, which has been awesome. And so, just like 2010, I remember that game we used to play at NHL Tonight, a little overtime thing, and pick one guy in each team. And I was like, let's just do that. I just threw it out there. I'll retweet 10 people. Retweeting was high currency when Twitter first started, and so that's all. And I couldn't believe the response. Like, this is just a silly little game. Like I said, what hashtag should I use? Bucci Overtime Challenge. What could be more literal than that? If I had a focus group, I probably wouldn't have chosen that. But maybe because it is so clunky and kind of long and literal, maybe that's why people kind of like it. It shows how non-professional it all is. And so then just took off so much. Maybe I'll make T-shirts. I'll give a couple T-shirts away next year and sell some to charity and give it away to some hockey-related charity. And then it just, like I said, I never thought it would go like that. In a couple of years, I added the college hockey hashtag just for fun. That started to get some traction, so I threw that on a couple T-shirts, and those started to sell. And it's like the old Paul Newman story when he started to make his salad dressing. He said, let's just give it away to charity. And then they made $1 billion, and he was like, if I had known I was going to make $1 billion, I would not give it away to charity. So not the whole thing. I could have paid off my mortgage by now. But it's been cool. It's been fun. It's a great connection with the fans. And like you said, I kind of, for the hockey fan in the U.S., there's kind of a low self-esteem, and like we're the underdog. We don't get enough attention. We're the youngest of 14 children, or the middle of 14 children. No one knows we're here. And so I kind of wave the pom-poms, and probably for the NHL because of the Bucci Overtime Challenge and the college hockey stuff. I'm the pom-pom shaker, as it turns out, even though I love the sports and love covering the sports. So that stuff all kind of happened by accident.
Okay, Booch, but you do it all yourself, right? Like, you're mailing stuff out, you're headed for
people think, every time I send an email, I say, you forgot your zip code. And then they'll give it to you, and they go, "Is this Bucci?" I go, "Yeah, who do you think it is?" I don't have a publicist. I don't even have an agent, much less certainly an assistant. So, this is all me. Going to the post office and boxing it up. And like I said, as we have night jobs. Well, not you guys, now that you're in the podcast empire. But, my job is mainly at night. So I got all day. The kids are grown, so I can do it. It's not that, the Bucci Overtime can get a little bit swamped. That's a little bit. But for the most part, it gives me something to do during the day, connect with fans, little creative outlet, come up with new products and new little logos. A high school friend of mine does the logos, and that's cool to kind of stay in touch with him. And I like things small and intimate, and connecting with people, and just kind of keep it fun. And not too professional, not too shiny and glinty. So it kind of fits. It fits everything well.
Well, before you joined us on the podcast, Ray and I were talking about type of guy you are, some of the things that you like. not the weirdness, maybe the more quirky side of John Buccigross. And Ray told the story of a collection of CDs. I don't know how many you probably still have, but how they were alphabetized, right? Like, how many did you have? And does your brain work that way specifically, where you just can't randomly have a collection of CDs? They have to be in alphabetical order.
Yeah, I'm not like that extremely OCD, and that part I am. I love music. I probably have 2,500 CDs. I was 20 when CDs first were introduced in 1986, and so that's when when I started first getting jobs and money, and so and of course I joined the Columbia CD Club 49 times in the 80s. Because I'd get my 11 free, buy one, and then I'd quit. They used to get you, and you have to, and that album of the month would show up. So if you weren't on it, you would lose. But I was ahead of it, so I won. So nice. I got all these CDs with the old Columbia RCA Music Club thing, where you get in, you get out, you join again, over and over again, all on the up and up. But you just got to get out. And so I think I'll alphabetize them and then put them in. Also, I like to kind of put them in album order as well. But for the most part, I'm not that exact, kind of orderly, but not that much. I've tried to get rid of stuff recently and get even fewer and fewer possessions to make the world less heavy. But for the most, so I'm kind of streaky when it comes to stuff like that. I'm not really full on nerd OCD, but in some areas I like my shit in order. You know what I'm saying?
Now, Booch, I did say one of the great bogeys in my life was, I used to stay with Booch when I was at ESPN. I'd stay in the basement. They had a nice little area down there. I was down there. That room, your office was there. All the CDs are alphabetized, and I never went in there and changed them around. I'm so disappointed in myself.
That is amazing. Because obviously one time on a golf trip, I went to the bathroom, I came back, and my phone was all Chinese. And I was like, what is this? And Ray had me convinced it was some sort of Wi-Fi bug. Oh, man, you're in trouble now. I think you got hacked. Everything's in Chinese, and and I didn't know how to change it back. Or I was like, I am done. They let me ride for about 10, 15 minutes, and finally said, I'll switch it back. I was like, so he has got me like that in the past, various things. And then, and of course, one of my favorite things is when we're driving around once and we're next to this it's like the biggest Walmart in the history of Connecticut. And Ray's like, hey, is there a Walmart around here? I go, yeah, right here. I was like, oh, of course. Of course there's a Walmart next to me. Of course Ray's going to ask me as if he has no idea where the local Walmart is. And there's 100-foot Walmart right to our left. Hey, is there a Walmart around? So I do that now with my kids all the time. So Ray he's taught me well with that one little gaffe.
That's outstanding. Well,
okay, hang on. I got to ask him though here. So you said about you're sporadic with your organization. So we all got lots of time in the pandemic where there's not really, there's not much to do and you just kind of sit and think. So you decide to rate all 22 Pixar movies.
Yeah.
Like, how did you come up with that? Like, I could see if you said, okay, I'm going to rate the Godfather movies or something. I'm going to rate the Pixar movies. Like, why?
Well, part of it was, I like to get value out of my things, whether I buy something or something. I hate to waste money. I don't like to do that. I signed up for the Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Hulu streaming package, $11.99 a month, great deal. And but I realized, I after a month or so, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I got to make use of the Disney Plus subscription I have. So I want to just watch all the Pixars, and like you said, we had time, and so and I'll rate them on Twitter again. The little rating system. People love the lists on the Twitter. So I just started with that, and I didn't realize how many I had seen. So I was actually excited to see some of these I hadn't seen because my kids came along when Pixar came along, but then they got older, and now I don't go to movies as much anymore because I always only went to children's movies with my kids throughout the years, So that started that little project, and so it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And, I do like, as you know, I like learning about stuff and studying about stuff and going back through numbers, whether it's stats of hockey players or teams and music, and so it was a good experience. Gave me something to do, and it really was. When you have something like that, give yourself a little structure throughout the day. It helps fill those big gaps. So it was a good learning tool as well. Hey, give yourself, whether it's a book, whether it's a thing of movies or something, a TV show. Like I'd never seen The Office. So when the pandemic began, I went through all 11 seasons of The Office. But I didn't rate or anything. It was just kind of on my own. And that was enjoyable too, because I'd never seen it.
All right. Well, we'll let you go with this, John. Look, we kind of glossed over, again, the Bucci Overtime Challenge and the college hockey hashtag and all of that. But our fearless leader, Rob Gray, just sent me a note, says that on your website, you've listed over $220,000 in donations to charity with the Overtime Challenge and college hockey. So that, my friend, is a job well done.
Oh yeah, thanks. I think we're probably close to 250 now, and my goal was kind of I'd like to someday, if I can make it big enough, to give away $1 million. But that's going to be a high order. But maybe something could happen here in the future, and we can, when gambling becomes legal in the U.S., we can make Bucci Overtime a cash game, and then we can really raise some money.
I do enjoy, Booch, when people tweet back at you when I picked the right guy and I don't get a shirt and you're like, yeah, 17,000 people picked Brayton Point. You're like, I love that.
All right, that's like when I think you usually get 2 to 3. Whoever scores, 200 to 300 people have them. That's what people need to understand. So I always say it's harder to win the Bucci Overtime Challenge than a scratch ticket. So it should be a proud moment in your life.
Awesome stuff, brother. Enjoy your family, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
Anytime, boys. Great listen. Keep it up.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Booch. Say hi to Mom and Dad. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Will do, Barb. Thanks so much, man.
John Buccigross, Ray, one of the good guys in sport, not just hockey. I mean, you've become good friends with Bucci over the years, primarily because of your introduction to sports broadcasting, hockey broadcasting with ESPN many, many years ago. But man, he's a sharp dude and a great sense of humor to go along with that.
Yeah, he's got I've always loved his quirkiness. Like there's a quirky humor to him and he loves to giggle. So like if something goofy happens, oh man, he can take it and just run with it somewhere creatively. I got to tell you though, of the guys that have helped me in my career, my broadcasting career, Bucci was one of the very first. Now that's where I was starting, but really that took an interest. And so he would do this thing, like we'd be coming back or we'd be in a commercial break and he'd say, hey Parm, I'm going to ask you a question about the Islanders when we come back. And I'd say, well, what are you going to ask? He goes, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to react. And so it was a way of keeping your brain sharp and like, I love that he taught me that being prepared means you can handle unprepared things.
Right.
And I just love that. And like, he's a great buddy. We go on these golf trips where, there's Darren Pangs on them and there's, and a bunch of guys that have nothing to do with hockey too. And man, we've been to some great places and played a lot of golf and spent a lot of time. He's a good dude. He's a great friend.
Hell of a golfer too, right? Like this guy can hit it.
Oh, he's a 2, a 1 or a 2 handicap.
Wow.
And he had a wonky back for a while.
Yeah.
And so I used to give it to him that like, well, what's going on there? He's like, well, I can't turn. And he'd go, I can't. And he'd do this kind of thing where he couldn't turn, but he's back and he's really good. I can't beat him. He's really good.
That's saying a lot because you can hit it as well. Great guest this week on the Ray and Dregs podcast. It's fun every once in a while to kind of step out of the norm, right? I mean, last week, episode 39 with Craig Berube of the St. Louis Blues. Again, another good guest, but with Bucci, you can basically take it anywhere you want, right? So it's always fun to hit the lighthearted on occasion as well. Let's dive into Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Each week on the podcast, we ask you to send in your questions. You can continue to do that on Twitter or our Instagram channel. And Ask Ray and Dregs Anything on a weekly basis, brought to you by our friends at Sure Health from Green Shield Canada. You can visit them online at surehealth.ca or call 1-844-855-SURE. Question coming from @Paul in Toronto on Twitter, Ray. Watching NHL teams' power plays in the playoffs, they all tend to look the same. So Paul is asking, why don't teams occasionally run from behind the net like Gretzky or Fedorko used to do, as it would then open things up a lot more up top? And he says, I know there is only one Wayne Gretzky, but based on the talent in today's NHL, Paul thinks that there should be more of that. What do you think?
I think the best power plays are the ones that are, this will sound a little goofy, but they're so structured that there is no structure to them. That you have forward swinging high, the defenseman swinging down low. Think of the very best power plays, and the one I think of first is Boston. And man, those guys are all over the place on the power play. Like, you don't stand in the same place. You move, because each time you move and the puck moves, the defender has to react. I'm with you. I think it's, having the guy walk across the top of the blue line, try and rifle a shot through that crowd of people. It gets blocked more than half the time. I would like to see more creativity, like put more creativity in the hands of the players.
Right.
Knowing that, and this is important too, there's only one one way the puck goes into the net. Like, if the puck's behind the net, you can't get the puck in the net. Like, you still got to get it to the front. And at times, I know coaches get frustrated when the guys keep the puck. They're moving it all over. It never comes to the middle, never gets to the front of the net. And that's the biggest challenge. But I would like to open up a power play. Put it this way. I'll take Columbus, for example. Historically, they've got a terrible power play. So instead of trying to structure it more, structure it less. Yeah. Give a couple of guidelines, but have their offensive people create their own chances. I think it can be. I think it can work that way. I'd give it a go anyway.
Yeah, why not? Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the tweet and the question. We have another Twitter question, Ray, from Fraser McRae 3, and we talked a little bit about this earlier in the podcast. With John Tavares approaching 30 years of age, do you think it would be possible, or it would be more valuable to the Toronto Maple Leafs to have the $11 million in cap space as opposed to John Tavares under contract until 2025?
It's impossible to say this without throwing shade on John, but I thought that the mistake was spending $11 million at a center ice position that they didn't need to spend it on. That they already had Nazem Kadri, they already had Austin Matthews. You could have spent $3 million on a third line center, and if you wanted to spend it there, if you didn't have anybody internally coming, which they didn't, right, and then use $8 million elsewhere. Clearly, this is a top-heavy team, and now there's no way around it. You've got 11 for Tavares, you got 10.5 for Matthews, and you've got, what's Marner, 11?
Yeah.
10?
Well,
okay, so say Marner's 10. I'm going to give Marner a 10. So
he's over 10.
You've got 22. So you've got 20 and a half, 31 and a half, $32 million in 3 players. There's no way around that. Those players are there. And so that leaves you right now with $49 million roughly to fill out your team. That doesn't even add Nylander or Riley or Freddie Anderson. There's never been a team so top heavy win. Yeah. And I think the real discussion is not whether John is a good player or not, because clearly he is. Yeah. It's about, could that money have been used differently? And I say, yes, it could have.
Mitch Marner, cap hit 10.893. $10,893,000 Toronto Maple Leaf cap hit. So a little less.
And you're not going to work around this. Well, no, you're going to have to work around it because those contracts aren't going anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Another Leaf-related Twitter question from last name Hodge. Are the Toronto Maple Leafs close to being able to advance in the playoffs, or does the tightness of their first round series last few seasons, how close the play-in round series this year was, make them seem better than they actually are?
Well, I think it's important to say, okay, they were close to winning each of those series in the last 3 years, the Boston series plus Columbus this year. And they were all in the first round. right? I mean, Columbus wasn't even a playoff round. So are they close to advancing? Sure. They could be a team that wins a round. But look at their roster, and it's very obvious where their holes are. And it's not easy to get players to fill those holes in their lineup. This is going to be a really interesting offseason for them. They're certainly going to have, like people say, oh, you can plug in Alexander Barabanov and Nick Robertson and Ilya Mikheyev and Pierre Engvall, and because they're all lower salaried players. But it doesn't mean they're all going to be effective. It doesn't mean they're like Nick Robertson's got a really good look to him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
But there's no guarantee that he's going to be a fabulous player or a 35 goal scorer or something like that. And certainly not at 19. I mean, he's got to learn the league, and that takes time. You can't exchange the experience he's going to gain unless you're, I don't know, Sidney Crosby or hell, Nate McKinnon stumbled around in his first year. He's pretty good.
He's not bad. All right, let's have some fun with our last Ask Ray and Dregs Anything question, right? And I think I'm pronouncing this right. It's from @LennyShish on Twitter.
Okay.
If your roles were reversed, where Ray became a hockey insider and Dregs, you became a broadcast analyst, who would excel better?
You. 100%.
Now, why do you think this?
I would be so frustrated. You text the guy and he doesn't get back to you. And then you text him again. Like my third text would be, what the are you doing? Like I don't think, because you have, and I've seen it with Bob, Bob, I guess almost anybody, LeBron, that we see the relentlessness, but also the way you have to approach trying to get your information, however you guys get it. But I'll text them again. I'll do it. I would just get frustrated with it. That, my personality doesn't work that well like that.
Yeah.
And hockey, so you could do the analyst job better than I could.
See, and I understand, and
you could do the analyst job. You could do the analyst job better than I can do the insider job for sure.
And I'm not sure about that because, and I mean this very respectful of all of the hockey analysts out there. No different than my job. Some are better than others. You have an unbelievable ability of seeing little details in a play that I wouldn't see. And I mean, that's your hockey IQ, your history as a player and all of that. I mean, hockey's not a difficult game to analyze in a broad sense, in a general sense. Okay, well, how did this goal happen? Well, this goal happened because there was a mistake made at this point, right? And then, or it was a nice play, right. And you got all world players executing. You're going to have highlight reel type of goals. I could do the obvious, but the detail stuff that you identify on a game-by-game basis, that's where I would struggle.
It's funny, I guess. It's like something just like a lot of times I notice something.
Yeah.
And I catch myself later on as I'm, I think back over the game. I'm like, I wonder why I noticed that. Yeah. And it's just because it doesn't look right. And so my brain can, I spin back through and I'm like, oh yeah, it was because this, but you got to do it fast. And you're right. Some things come easier to other people than like you guys, the insiders, you'll get a nugget of something, but the story is not the nugget. The story is 3 places away from the nugget of information. And you guys know how to weave the road to get there. And where I might go, oh, shiny coin. It's right here. And so like that, yeah, it's a good thing we're in the roles we're in. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough. That was an excellent question. Had some fun with it. All right, episode 41 coming up next week, perhaps later this week since we're recording here on Sunday. What's your week look like? I mean, aside from diving into the conference finals and analyzing on TSN.
Yeah, well, we're in BC. We're starting school this week.
Oh boy!
And so, Cammie and I are of we're a little uneasy.
Yeah.
We're trying to understand the protocols. The BC government and the school boards actually have been really good about trying to get as much information out as possible. But then it's trying to take that information and say, okay, what the hell are we doing with it? Riley is going into grade 8 and Reese is in grade 5. So they're in two different schools. So the protocols for high school are far different than they are for elementary school.
Yeah.
And, I wish we had, and I mean, we in general had more information. And I get why people are frustrated, but I don't know why people can't understand that the doctors are just learning too.
Yeah.
Like they're just learning. I know it's been 6 months and you think, well, why don't they know more? Because they're just learning about it. If you could learn like at the pace we want them to learn at, they would understand the cold a lot better than we do.
Yeah.
Right? The cold's been around since like forever. And so now we got to try and make these decisions and they've got to try and build protocols to go to school. A lot of our week will be trying to figure that out.
Well, good for you and good luck to you and Cammie. And so my kids, Katie and Mason, are fourth year university, second year university. And of course, we want to do everything as parents to keep our children safe. That's our top job. That's what we do as moms and dads. And I'm worried about the pandemic. I mean, how can you not be without a vaccine in place? But in saying that, you also have to consider the mental health of our kids, right? And that social environment that Reese and Riley are going to have access to now on a daily basis. I mean, that matters. That's part of developing and maintaining good health. So I wish you guys the best for sure.
Yeah, thanks. I hope everybody tries to be a little patient and do as much as you can to what you feel is right, but don't look at somebody else like they're a complete knucklehead because they've made a different decision than you. We're all doing the best we can, and I hope there can be some open-mindedness to it. Although the last 6 months have shown that that's not always the case.
All right. Well, good luck with all of that. Big shout out. Thank you to all of our partners here on the podcast. They make our work possible. We couldn't do it without you. Tim Hortons, their wildly popular NHL Superstar collectible sticks are back. We've talked about this a lot. What a great program. This weekend, you can visit rayanddregs.com and enter to win one of the 2 grand prizes, including our limited edition custom autographed Ray and Dregs lockers. We've been talking about this for several weeks now, showing them off on the YouTube version of the podcast. The full set of this year's 6 NHL Superstar mini sticks, an autographed Ray Ferraro New York Islanders jersey, and a $100 Tim's card. That's all available. Full rules and regulations and eligibility information online at rayanddregs.com. Coolbet.co, thank you. The free-to-play sports and casino games website. Boston Pizza, we'll see you on the Boston Pizza patio for puck drop with the conference finals underway. Dewar Performance Denim. Use code RAY for 15% off site-wide at dewar.ca. SureHealth.ca. Call them at 1-844-855-SURE. Image Optometry. Visit image.ca. Get new glasses. Pay online with your vision care benefits. And a reminder, because we are starting to do this more and more on a weekly basis, showing some stuff off the top of the show. You got to see it, right? And the way you see it, Ray, is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Have you checked out the podcast on the YouTube channel? I clicked on last week, and I didn't like the way I looked, so I'll admit I didn't watch all of it. I just kind of looked at it and went, I got to try harder.
I see. I think that's almost a daily occurrence in my house. I look there and I'm like, wow, I don't have much hair. Wow, I don't know. I don't know. Do you ever look at there and go, wow, I'm so handsome? I never think that. So I'm like, yeah, I don't sweat it. I'm like, yeah, it is what it is.
All right, buddy. Thanks as always. Have a good week.
Yeah, have a good week, Dregs. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be well.
And thanks to Aaron the Tech Johnson for producing the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And another thank you to Tony Ferraro for providing the excellent music you hear each week on the podcast as well. Look forward to episode 41. Be safe, everybody.